What we do here is go back. What we do here is go back. What we do here is go back.
Has that worked? That looks like it's worked. Okay, good evening everyone, sorry about that. As per usual, I did something which was unintentional, as in I forgot to set the stream key properly. It's a good job I don't have a technology channel. That would be a disastrous move on my part. So good evening everyone, it is Saturday the 20th. Don't do it. Siri nearly jumped in. It is, what day is it? The 25th. Oh, I'm having a bad start. 25th September 2021. We're getting ever and ever closer to Christmas. Oh my God, can't believe it is literally 3 months away until Christmas Day. How terrifying is that? That is actually genuinely quite terrifying. 3 months till Christmas.
I don't use Facebook anymore, so I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah. If you don't, yeah, like Kath said, if you don't use Facebook, you probably wouldn't have known that, and if you don't watch rubbish YouTube streams. Anyway, today's stream, as you've probably already guessed, is a very slow week this week. There's been a few things in the news which have been moderately interesting. AMD chipset drivers for one, which actually many people have watched that video and liked it and taken the advice and updated their chipset drivers. We basically all did it here in the house, pretty much like one PC after the other. And you've probably found after you've done your chipset driver update, you find your PC going to sleep a lot quicker than it used to. AMD's new power profile plan has been a little bit slightly overzealous, and I found I'd look away and all of a sudden the PC's gone to sleep and you'd have to log back in again, which is a little bit traumatic. Kath specifically hates it because every time she goes to use her computer, she shakes the mouse to wake it up and it's at the login screen. She gets very upset with that kind of thing.
Because I'm in the middle of watching a video and it loses my place.
Yes, it loses her place in the videos. Very upsetting times. So anyway, hopefully that has been helpful to some of you. Have you noticed anything of a decrease in performance? Genuine question. A few people have said that their system seems slower now than it did this time last year with the drivers, etc. So yeah, I don't know. I personally haven't noticed any specific differences, although weirdly the system behind me, the streaming system, which has got an NVIDIA graphics card in there, does seem a little bit slower now. So I don't know, if there's any of you that have been having similar issues, then please let us know in the comments section. Also as well, obviously today we're going to be discussing MSI motherboards and how have they managed to become the most popular boards in the UK right now. Now obviously this is a UK centric channel, although we do have viewers all around the globe, so we will take into consideration marketplaces elsewhere. But at the moment, from Amazon.co.uk, this week, well this evening in fact, looking on the bestsellers list because I was looking for a motherboard to buy because I was thinking I haven't bought a motherboard in ages. I need a board to buy and take a look at and have some interest in. What am I going to do? And looking through, it was literally number 1 MSI, number 2 MSI, number 3 MSI, etc, etc. And it didn't really change until we got to there was a Raspberry Pi board, which I think was at number 7, which yeah, you kind of expect. Then there was the good old favourite, the Asus, the B450F Gaming 2, which mine is currently being repaired because it's slightly dead. And then there was another MSI board, and yeah, it was just insane. It's just insane how many MSI boards are in the bestsellers list. And this is quite a change because I think it was only probably about 3, maybe 4 months ago, which I looked at the bestsellers list, and it was predominantly ASRock. Sorry, predominantly Asus. That was a Freudian slip. Yeah, it wouldn't be ASRock. ASRock do have some decent boards, but they're slightly far and few between. And I think between Asus and MSI, and to some extent Gigabyte, ASRock has been pushed down to 4th, maybe even into 5th position in the motherboard rankings. Some would say that even BioStar boards are slightly better than ASRock these days. But if you've got an ASRock board, don't take that as an offence. Kath is currently rocking still the ASRock. Wrecking. Yeah, I was going to say, Kath is wrecking, with all her open tabs, the legendary board that is the ASRock B450 Pro 4. I wouldn't say Gaming Pro 4, but it's not, it's just a Pro 4, which was one of the most popular boards of its time, and actually still sells quite a lot now. But it seems that MSI have taken the lead, and I guess it's hardly surprising. For me personally, I've had a lot of MSI boards. I've got 2 here in front of me. I've got the B450-A Max, which is a brilliant budget offering. You can pick these up for kind of like 40, 50 pounds. So they do offer a lot of value for money. On the other side of things, you've got things like the B550 even, the Gaming Edge Wi-Fi, which you can pick up, again, pretty decent price, around about the 150 mark, sometimes on offer 130. And of course, coming in between that, you've got all sorts of boards like the B450 Tomahawk, the B550 Tomahawk, you've got the Pro-A B550, lots and lots of decent boards out there which you can choose from in the MSI range. And they all seem to be pretty decent pricing. They all seem to be relatively reliable. We do have issues with failure rates on some particular boards. MSI's Z490 boards weren't great. And also, I would say arguably their first iteration of the X570 boards they were pretty pony as well. They got the job done, but they weren't particularly good compared with the rest. And in fact, the B550 range in pretty much every category performs better than its X570 counterpart, which is kind of weird if you think about it. But I guess at the end of the day, it's us that actually wins, because we get the B550 boards at really good prices, and they actually beat most X570 from MSI and actually some of the other manufacturers as well. So yes, there's a lot to like about MSI. Some things which you may not like, obviously their software. MSI's Center, or Gaming Center, or Red Dragon Center, whatever they want to call it this week, for a lot of people is a real bane of their existence, and people don't particularly like it. I actually really like it, find it works really well, but again, some people actually dislike it immensely. Good old Bob's gone in with a super chat straight off there, £5, thank you very much. It says, disco, disco, ooh, ooh, disco, disco, ooh, ooh. That is verbatim what it says. Well, you can read it, it's on the screen, because that is still working. Thank you very much, Bob. Much appreciated. So, what we're trying to discuss tonight is, where have MSI gone right? What have they done wrong? What can they improve on? And, I suppose more importantly, moving forward into Christmas and then into New Year, CES is going to be a big thing for AMD and Intel. What are we going to see coming out from MSI for the next iteration of AMD processors? And to a lesser extent, I'm guessing at the moment, Intel. Intel these days is still very much the unloved stepchild of the computing industry, sadly. They've gone from being the absolute creme de la creme of computing to being now what people have to use if they really can't get anything else, which is a really weird thing. And I'm guessing there are those of you that are in the chat right now watching this live, and possibly those who are watching the replay. You've got Intel systems and you really like them, find them very reliable, etc, etc. But I think in this day and age at the moment, it's very hard to recommend a Intel chipset or an Intel motherboard or Intel processor in general, because of the fact that for some reason still, I don't know whether it's down to licensing or just because they don't sell many, but Intel motherboards in general are far more expensive and far less featured than their AMD counterparts, which is an absolute shame, because the 10100 processor from Intel is a great chip. You can pick those up at the moment for about £70 here in the UK. In fact, Seam at Night posted a deal earlier on our Discord for that particular chip at that price. And I would love to get another one of those. They're really the gamer's favourite for that sort of money. But buying a suitable motherboard which has got a decent amount of features, you're not going to get it for the same price as you get in the AMD stuff, even from the same manufacturer like MSI. So it's a really difficult position to be in at the moment. So I'm going to look at some of your comments and questions and see what you guys have been saying. I'll also say some quick hellos to those that are in the chat as well, and see what the general consensus is. There is a poll, so if you haven't done it already while I'm reading out these, go ahead and click on the poll. Basically it's a yes and no. So do you think MSI do the best motherboards? I know it's not really a cut and dry answer, but unfortunately YouTube in their wisdom don't really give you the option for adding many other alternative answers to the question. So it's a yes or no. So what I guess we're saying is, in general, overall, MSI as a brand, do you think that their motherboards offer performance, value for money, and design which is better than the competition? Yeah, obviously there's going to be some particular boards where if you're comparing something like the Dash A Max against something like the B550 Aorus Master, then clearly, yes, it isn't a real competition. But in the price segments, if you look at equal products, generally I think the other ones are going to do better. So let's say hello to those in the chat and see what is going on. What is she doing? So we've got David Aikens in with us, and Dutch Jan. We've got Paul Bakewell. Good evening, Paul. We have also got, scrolling down through, Rick H. How you doing, Rick? Good evening to you. Hopefully everyone is well. Hassan J says hello. And who else we got? Danielle Emberley. How are you, Danielle? Ugly Bob, obviously. Yes, I said that again, testing my flashy balls. Thank you for that. The Ordinary Dude, he's with us also. Fred Brown says, I'm rocking the MSI X470 Gaming Plus and a 5600X and 6600 XT with 32 gig of RAM at 32 megahertz. Not bad, not bad at all. That's actually a nice little system there, it really is. Someone's saying about the pro-vdh being problematic. I think actually, yeah, the MSI's B550 pro-vdh Wi-Fi was possibly one of the least reliable boards of the lot. I don't know why it was. In theory, it's based around the same chipset as the other boards in the range. Obviously, there's some slight tweaks to it to get it to a certain price point. But yeah, bizarrely, the pro-vdh was one which I seen in the comment section for the video. Lots of people commenting and saying, this doesn't work, or I can't get it to flash, or it's died during a flash, or it's died shortly after a flash, or has had USB issues, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't know why, I can't explain it. I've had 2 of those boards and both of them have been absolutely fine. No issues whatsoever, and actually both of the boards I think I've actually sold on to other people and touch wood, no problems at all. So yeah, I think it's down to luck of the draw. Possibly it's revisions of the board, possibly earlier ones maybe were better, later ones possibly not entirely sure. Ugly Bob says, I think across the board MSI make the best boards, but other companies make individually better boards. And I think, yeah, I think we can agree on that. I think we can definitely find common ground on that. Like I said, there are going to be certain boards which are going to be better, possibly more popular, depending on the marketplace as well. Certain boards like the B450 Aorus Elite is a hugely popular board, like ridiculously so. It is a very good board. There are quirks with it, which, well, from the Amazon one that I got recently, you can tell what some of those quirks were, although I think that's mostly user error. I'm going to have myself a Pepsi. They're not sponsored. Not yet. Getting a slightly dry throat. I do need some sort of humidifier. If only I had a humidifier to hand. Oh, I do. For those of you not sure what the hell that is, there was a Amazon warehouse deal. No, Amazon deal, sorry, that Kath posted on ShopSmart. And that was normally 50 something pounds. And they had it reduced, bizarrely, from Easy SMX, were the actual seller, which we didn't realise until after. It just happened to be one of those happy coincidences that we've done stuff for them before. And yeah, they reduced it down to £13 for a little portable, rechargeable humidifier stroke cooler, which is it's very bizarre. I've done the unboxing and review on it today, so I'll probably do a little bit of a discussion on it. And if things get a little bit warm in here this evening, then it may come on in, actually, tell me if it's too loud. That's just the lighting. I'm a rookie. Let's turn the thing off. Is that too noisy? Can you hear that quite clearly on the microphone? I'm going to aim it towards me. I can cool my Coke. I can cool myself. Cheers, everybody. I haven't had a Coca-Cola. Sorry, Pepsi Cola for a long time. That was very, very enjoyable. We do like that.
No aspartame.
No aspartame. Oh,
Like Dr. Pepper's.
that's going to be too loud. Let's turn that off.
Noise at all.
No noise, no one can hear it. Good. Okay, so who else is with us? I haven't got through doing that invite. British Noob is with us and has also become a member of the channel. And he says, MSI popular because I buy them. That works. I'll go with that. So it is definitely noob approved. Bombay Potato says, one of my mates sent their B450 Tomahawk back to Amazon 4 times with 3 different issues each time until he bought an ASRock board. Wow. B450 Tomahawk is the most popular board I think there has ever been. A particularly popular board, which I actually, at the time, I always said that I thought it was personally overrated. And although it got reviewed very well, it did still lack features which, as time went on, there was stuff available which was better. Anyway, moving on. Who else was with us? So Dutch Jam, we said, Mark Ekrun. How you doing, Mark? Mark says, Gigabyte boards have been the worst for me, but everyone has different experiences. I favour MSI. Good, and hopefully you voted at the top. Who else we got? Trying to catch up now. Rick H says hi. Paul Bakewell says hi. Kath saying hello to everybody. Atom Morex is with us. How you doing, Atom? And also John Sullivan. How you doing, John? Who else? Anthony Carter says, I like MSI, but I'm a Gigabyte fan. I'm not sure about Gigabyte. I'm really not. I had bad experiences with Gigabyte during the FX range of boards. Obviously the Athlon FX. Yeah, there were some weird ones. I think it was the 970 chipset. Was it the 990? 990 FX? 970, one of the two. And yeah, I had some really bad boards. They just failed for no apparent reason. Just literally, you'd have them running, then go to turn it on and nothing.
It's not matching the computer.
What's not matching my computer?
The computer.
It's not. No, I don't think it ever will.
It does every night.
It does now and then. John Sullivan says, I wouldn't say MSI are the best motherboards. They have made some stinkers as well as some great ones. Yep, I think that is definitely true. I think probably, that's a new word I've just made up, probably. That's like probably and maybe put together, possibly. Probably. I think at the moment, MSI have pretty much hit the sweet spot in terms of availability, especially on Amazon, which is probably the biggest seller on the planet, I guess, at the moment. The pricing seems pretty keen. They offer a lot of rebates, which I've always struggled to actually get, but they offer them, I guess, so there is that. And I think in terms of performance, I think they perform generally pretty good. I wouldn't say they're particularly good at overclocking. I wouldn't say they're particularly bad. I would say they just get the job done. And as I am in the kind of the business of content creation, having a reliable motherboard which just does what it needs to do is extremely important.
She wants to sit on you.
Maisie, what do you want? Come on in. Maisie, you coming up? Come on in. The cat is looking at me longingly as if she wants somewhere to sit. Come on up. Come on in. All right, don't bother. You had your chance. You missed it. You blew it. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so yeah, price, performance, blah, 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 stability. I think MSI motherboards in general are very stable. I don't remember the last time that I had an MSI board crash whilst in use. Obviously, a lot of that is going to be down to the fact that I do generally look after my systems quite well. And obviously, I do kind of do what I do for a living, so I've got to have a relatively reliable PC. But even that, saying that the PC behind me, this one here, the streaming one, I install all kinds of crap on there on a daily basis when I'm doing testing, trying out new stuff which has been sent, all kinds of USB drivers, all kinds of RGB software, yeah, you name it. And then running benchmarks and basically just hammering stuff on there. And yeah, it's pretty much 100% stable. I've never done a benchmark or stress test and have it crash on me. So I suppose there is that to it. Domus is with us as well. Dom says, hello all. Will this be a rant on Hardware Unboxed channel? Interesting. Hope to hear great questions tonight. Will this be a rant on Hardware Unboxed channel? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that relates to. I don't know. What have they said now? I know they've had issues with MSI, and I think a lot of people have actually. There's been a few people in this kind of tech community who have had issues with MSI. And I've got to be honest with you, I've worked with them kind of indirectly through their third parties, etc. And they've sent us stuff to review. In fact, none of the stuff that we've got here has been sent for review. I think all we had actually was the keyboard. The mouse I think I bought, but I think they sent me another one. And the headset, which is up there. The headset is really good actually. I do use that almost daily. Yeah. Everything else from MSI I've actually bought myself. I think I'm just double checking out my brain.
Big enough to get motherboards, yeah.
Even the GT 1030, which I regret, but it was okay. Sky Stalker is with us as well. How you doing, Sky? Says hello, kind persons. Welcome to Saturday night in the UK. It is. It's Saturday night. It got dark tonight really quickly. Very quickly. Welly Bob's with us. How you doing, Welly Bob? Says evening, Mrs. Calf. I am here. I did say evening all above there. I'll let you off. Nick Barnes with us says, hi Mike and Kath, trust everyone's well tonight. Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Maisie put her pull up.
Maisie says 2 pulls up for that. Who else we got? Dutch Jan. I think I've said everyone. Mark Berry. I'm losing my mind. I really am.
You're really far behind.
I am super far behind. Let's fast forward a bit. So you got Bandy. Says open the door. Fred Brown says, are you there, Mike? I am. I'm here. British Noob says, yo, pop up for chats. Yes. I don't know why that is. Someone's saying there, I'm not going to even try to pronounce your name. I do apologise. Actually, what the hell? Let's go for it. It's a 50-50. I can either be right or it can be very wrong. So, Manura Miwiz, did I get that almost slightly right? Says, isn't this iDubbbz theme song? It is actually iDubbbz and Tech Guruji, and there's a couple of others. Even
Content Cop.
yeah, Content Cop was iDubbbz, and who else was it? Someone else was using it as well. Can't think of it. There's loads of people that have used it. The music is from Otis McDonald, and the track is called Otis McMusic. And he's created a load of stuff for YouTube in the creators library. So it's kind of like that free stuff which is available for everyone to use. I actually used it before I'd seen iDubbbz and Tech Guruji, in my defense. So it was only after when people started commenting and going, nah, that's Technical Guruji's music. It's like, is it? So Google it. Oh, yeah, it is. Crap. Oh well, never mind. Such is life. Let's say we've all got good taste. Ugly Bob says, everyone having a drink this evening, if you're of legal age, of course. Yes, hopefully so. Piston Broke, nice name. It says, it's taken them years, but MSI's Dragon Sensor, now MSI Sensor, no longer completely destroys my MSI Afterburner settings. I will say, I do actually like the MSI Sensor. And in fact, I've got it currently running. Now, if I can show it, is it on that screen? Let's move my mouse over. So for those of you that haven't actually seen it, it's a pretty decent bit of kit. Minimize these windows because I don't want to be showing you that. Let's go for desktop. Oh, that's showing the wrong desktop. You bloody imbecile. Right, let's try that again. Oh. This is because every single day I have to kind of ditch this whole setup and start again all over. So let's try now. Desktop. There we go. You should be able to see that now.
How does it compare to Dragon Center Concept Soup?
How does it compare with Dragon Center? I would say it's definitely on par. Let me see if I've got to. Let's get my window back open, clear. I'm going to fast forward to the very end now. Cosmic Space Muffin's with us as well. How you doing? Right, so yeah, that's the new MSI sensor with the new design language, which I like the look of it. I really do. So if you go into features, you don't have to have everything installed. So I've only got gaming gear, gaming mode, user scenario, and obviously Mystic Light. Mystic Light for me on this particular setup is perfect because I've got the MSI headset, as you can see, got the MSI mouse, got the MSI keyboard, got my RAM and the motherboard, it's all MSI, so you can synchronize it all together, or I can desynchronize it should I wish to. But it does all work very nicely together, and then you can just choose your particular type of lighting, click apply, and then it'll go through and change it. And you can see what it's going to do there, even though you can't see it on the screen, but that is what it does. So it's good stuff. And also in feature and user scenario, I love because I can customize my fan profiles and that kind of stuff. You do all your voltage, your gain boost, etc. Just very nice and easy. It's a nice cohesive ecosystem. And even changing things like the fan speed is really simple to do. So I've only got one fan header, and I can just go ahead, play around with the settings, and it just works. It's very good. I do enjoy using it immensely. Although better turn that back down because they'll get a bit noisy. It doesn't particularly like the fans in this PC, I'll be honest. But I think that's more down to the controller. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really nice piece of software. There's very little really you can complain about. Got your RAM timings, etc., etc. Yeah, it's a decent bit of software. And the gaming gear, you can go in and configure things with your mouse, etc. Your sensors. It's all nice and quite clean. I find it works well. It'd be nice to have a macro in here. There's no options for setting up macros. And for some reason the keyboard doesn't appear on there, which is bizarre, but you get sound options, your sound effects and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's alright. And hardware monitoring's okay. Gives you pretty much all the information you need, CPU temperatures, etc. So yeah, overall I find it hard to complain, being that it is a piece of free software. And actually I better change that back to rainbow. There we go. So yeah, it's a pretty decent piece of software. I like it. I think MSI have done a lot to actually make it a lot more stable than it was. A lot of people complained originally with the other version, the Dragon Center, or Red Dragon Center rather than MSI Center. They've also had to recently make it a AWP, or like a universal Windows program, which runs in the App Store or is from the App Store. If you're a partner with Microsoft and you sell a certain amount of OEM machines or kind of branded machines, you have to have a certain amount of software actually in the Windows Store. It's something that they've clamped down on for OEM vendors. So you'll start seeing it from Gigabyte, you'll start seeing it from Asus. I think Armory Crate is already in there, possibly Gigabyte's one as well, the RGB stuff. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if Gigabyte actually do that many OEM systems. I'm not entirely sure on that. But yeah, MSI definitely do. We'll start seeing it from Zotac and players like that as well soon. I'm not sure how it's going to work with Dell. Maybe Dell have got apps in the Windows Store already. I'm not too sure. I've not owned a Dell computer in many years, but possibly that is going to be a thing. But yeah, the programs are going to have to go through the Windows Store, so they are going to run as AWP app, which means really they're going to be better coded in theory, because they're going to be designed to run in Windows or in that kind of little mini secure environment. So that should, for at least for MSI at the moment with this particular piece of software, should make it more stable rather than relying on all the other stuff that it did previously and all the plugins, etc. So anyway, that is that. Let's have a look at some of your other questions. Where is my mouse even gone? I'm going to use a board. That MSI Motherboards make excellent mouse pads. Oh no, that won't track for shit, no. Yeah, give us a mouse pad. I'm not going to torment you guys and girls with that any longer. So there we go. That's better. Oh, where's it gone? There we go. Someone said there, MSI the best scammer. I can't remember exactly what it is they were kind of guilty of. Is that in the way there? I can't see. That's going to fall off there. No, never mind. I know they've actually done some pretty shady things with. I think it was Tech Team GB had an issue with them about a review, and they asked them to not post it or something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it just goes to show that regardless of what MSI's kind of marketing tactics are, or what goes on behind the company's kind of corporate doors, ultimately, as long as the product they're selling is a good price, reliable, feature-proof, well, has a decent feature set, and is kind of okay, most of us in the kind of real world, despite what we may have our own individual feelings on about how companies run, what the company stands for, etc., 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 if the product's good, we're going to buy it regardless. And I think that's something which we live in a very kind of woke time at the moment, where we look at individuals and we look at companies and we look at professions or whatever it may be, and we have this preconception that companies should be kind of whiter than white and do things exactly above board and play by the rules and all that kind of stuff, which in reality, very, very few do. There's the odd few that actually get caught out with it. There's those that we kind of are openly known to be slightly bending rules or to be exploiting workforces, for example. But ultimately, we still buy it because there isn't really a great deal of choice. The moral choice is always a difficult one. especially for me. Obviously, I know that MSI have had various dealings and buying from Amazon because of Amazon workers and how they get treated, etc. At least what we're told. Unless you actually work there, I guess it's difficult to validate that one way or the other. But Amazon provide a great service. It's very easy. It's generally very cheap. Great returns, etc., etc. So it's hard to not use them. And I guess the same goes for MSI. Yes, their marketing company may have overstepped many boundaries in the past, but they still make good stuff. So it's hard to actually, it's hard to overlook it. Bombay Potato says, I couldn't imagine using an MSI keyboard, but that's because I'm well into... sorry, Calf says I've got to go down a bit.
Wasn't it to do with our GPUs?
That's right, yes. Yeah, Bombay Potato is absolutely right. Yeah, wasn't it to do with GPUs? They were reselling their own GPUs on an eBay page for scalper prices. Yes, that is, I believe that is absolutely correct, yeah. Yeah, they were selling RTX GPUs through a third party at inflated prices. It's one of those things with, I don't know, everyone makes mistakes. Literally everyone makes mistakes. God knows I've made hundreds in my lifetime. And no doubt, if you're honest with yourselves watching this, do yourself a bit of soul searching, regardless of how good you are now or how good you've been through your life. You've made mistakes and you've either tried to cover them up or you've just plain flat out ignored them because you thought, right, okay, sorry, dealt with that, and you put it to one side. And I think really we should give the same leeway. If they keep on doing it time after time after time after time and keep on going, then yeah. But especially for a big company like MSI, like, yeah, that GPU thing, clearly they were doing something which they shouldn't have been doing. Someone somewhere thought, yes, we can make a bit of money here. And ultimately, most people, if you work for a company or you work for somebody, or even if you're self-employed, if you see an opportunity to make a few quid, it's hard not to look at it, especially these day and ages where everyone's earning a little bit less, that everything's costing a little bit more. So I can totally understand where they're coming from. Of course, it isn't an ethical thing to do, but they're not the only ones that do it, and they're just one of the ones which actually got caught out for it. So I wouldn't chastise them too much. Yes, it's not good, but yeah, it happens. Captain Meets Adventure says, at the end of the day, in the world of tech, there is knows and unknown knows that we all know. I couldn't agree more. John Sullivan says, I've just had a bad experience with the 1080 Gaming X, which they refused to help me out with. Oh, that's pretty poor. I've got to be honest, getting in touch with any motherboard manufacturer these days is an absolute rigmarole. It really is. Which is another reason why I like using Amazon, because ultimately with Amazon, if something's wrong, they're like, okay, yeah, just send it back and we'll credit your account. Because they just can't be bothered. They're making so much money, it makes no difference to them. It's literally a drop in the ocean. Whereas with a lot of other companies, retail, high street, that sort of thing, and even some of the UK suppliers, I've had my own issues recently with box.co.uk, which I've sent a motherboard back, which I know is faulty. I've even made videos on it showing it's faulty. They've then spent ages looking at it, waiting for an engineer to look at it, to then confirm it's faulty, to then send it back to ASUS for them to confirm it's faulty, and for them to refurbish the board and give me one back. I've been waiting a month already, and that board is still at box.co.uk waiting to go to ASUS, and they've said it's going to be at least another 4 or 5 weeks. So realistically, I'm not going to see that motherboard this year. I don't think. I would be amazed if I get it back this year. Whereas with Amazon, I get on the tech chat, go in there, explain what's going on, and within probably 15-20 minutes tops, I've got a returns label waiting in my inbox, and I can pack it up and take it to the local post office. Or sometimes they'll even come and collect it from your house. You can't compete with those levels of service. You can't. You just can't. It's insane. Anyway, hey ho. Sorry to hear about your thing there, John. Where are we? Tomo S, how you doing? Tomo says 5600X and Gigabyte B550 Aorus Elite V2 works great. Yes, sounds like a good look. Sounds like a good combination there. I gotta be honest, I don't think I have. Kath, have I had a B550 Gigabyte board? I don't think I have I?
Don't think so.
Must have to do that. I'm gonna have to get a Gigabyte motherboard. I'm gonna have to get a Gigabyte B550. I might get the Gaming X. That looks like an interesting board.
A320, A520M.
Yes, I am. Thomas Berglund says, I hate MSI before I try my X570 Unify. The X570 Unify is a magical board, it really is. A little bit on the pricey side, but pretty good. John says, when a group of delivery drivers for Amazon call them piss jug men, I think it tells you something. It does. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, again, like people, if you work, I struggle at times to kind of feel bad for some of the people in those positions. Now, I guess there's a lot of people out there that just can't get work anywhere, so they're happy to take a job. But if you're in a job and you're being exploited, the thing you should do as a human being is to not be exploited and leave that job. Even if it means going on... Yeah, it's easier said than done. I'm being very kind of simplistic about it. But ultimately, if you work somewhere like that and they're exploiting you, the only way they will ever learn is if everybody leaves. And if people leave and then others leave, eventually it'll get to the point where they will not be able to fill jobs, they will not be able to fulfill orders, the company will not be able to function as a company. Simple as that. Look at the UK at the moment, you've got the fuel shortages, allegedly. So because of the way that lorry drivers have been treated here in the UK, with registration, with regulations, working hours, and basically shit pay, most of them have said, actually no, sod it, I'm not doing this anymore. And they've gone off and got other jobs. Now, because there's a shortage of fuel, and it makes a difference to people's lives, they're like, okay, maybe we need to get some truck drivers. It's like, you had truck drivers. There are truck drivers. Some of them can't work because of the human malware and because of the track and trace system wiping out entire swathes of the economy. But if you want people to work and do a job for a living, respect them for what they do. Pay them what they should be paid. It's common sense. If you screw people and screw people and screw people, eventually you're going to screw that sector, which is obviously what has happened to the truck drivers. Anyway, let's move on with that. It's far too political for this time of day. John Sullivan says, what can you say? Stuff happens. I was annoyed initially as it cost me 600 quid. So my next one was the 5700 XT. Wow. I actually like the 5700 XT. That's what I've got on my PC still. And I like that card. It's good. Ordinary Dude says, get the Aorus B550i-AX. That sounds a lot like an ITX board, which I don't know whether I can do. We were having this conversation actually. We might actually change the whole kind of what we're talking about tonight, because we were having a discussion on the Discord today. So those of you that were present on the discussion, I think Dave Aitken was there and a couple of others. We were talking about the way that the PC market is at the moment and saying that ATX as a form factor is extremely wasteful. Now, if you look at it, obviously, an ATX full-size board, realistically, anything kind of south of the PCI Express slot, you're unlikely to use. Unless you've got a specific reason, maybe you're streaming, if you've got a capture card, it's unlikely you're going to be doing SLI unless you've got a really sick, twisted sense of humour, because it's just not a good thing at all. So the conversation was, Micro ATX makes a lot more sense in terms of production costs, as in wastage, saving the planet, etc, etc, etc. Smaller form factor, you can use a smaller case so you can save money on materials. So if Micro ATX became more popular, it should be cheaper, whereas at the moment it works out that ATX being the most popular is kind of like the cheaper boards. Micro ATX are roughly the same, sometimes slightly cheaper. But then you go down to ITX and prices are absolutely stupid, and with less features, and with all the drawbacks that are inherent with ITX, such as potentially less cooling, because obviously all the components are compressed into a section of the motherboard. You're in a smaller chassis, so you've got less airflow, etc, etc, etc. Power supplies, potentially you can't use an ATX power supply, so you have to go SFX or even smaller, which is adding to the cost. So we seem to be punished for buying smaller equipment. And the discussion then went on to be, look at how the Xbox and PlayStation 5 have worked out. They're considerably smaller, have arguably as much, if not more, processing power than a desktop PC, cost considerably less as well, like £250, £350 in some places for those consoles. If you get a second-hand Series S, you're looking at £150, in which a desktop PC can't come close. Obviously you get more flexibility with a desktop PC, etc, etc, but in terms of pure gaming performance and efficiency, Xbox, PlayStation do it much better. And then we come down to the situation of, yes, but that is because Xbox and PlayStation 5, they're coded on a specific set of hardware requirements, whereas with the PC, and also on the flip side of it, I went into Android and iOS. Obviously, iOS is based on a certain amount of hardware. There's only a certain amount of possible configurations of hardware. It doesn't need so much code, so it runs considerably more efficiently than Android because it has to cater for a huge wide gamut of components, from tablets, phones, computers, Chromebooks, etc, etc. Pretty much anything can run it. So it's an inherently more bloated operating system because it has to cater for so much more stuff. So the argument was that surely if coding wasn't so sloppy, they could make it so that PC hardware would run much better on less specs. And it's kind of, we got to this point where everybody was right, but yet everybody was wrong at the same time, because we were all looking at it from slightly different angles. So some of us were looking at it from an angle of PC coding being sloppy as all hell, hence why we get games that crash and driver patches, and some systems, especially if you're on an AMD graphics card, if you're playing Fortnite, there's a strong chance it's going to crash. It's just one of those things. Then you've got to look at the other side for efficiency. Obviously, having a smaller motherboard, having less of a graphics card, less of a processor, because you don't need as much processing power. If the code was written better or more optimized, then you'd save money and potentially save the planet because of less electricity, less components, etc, etc. And yeah, it's a very expensive price that we pay for flexibility in the PC in the market. You buy a motherboard, okay, such as this, you can effectively put on a processor which could be anything from 7 years old up to modern day, released today. Memory wise, you could run DDR4 2133, which is 6-7 years old now, or you could potentially run DDR4 4000 if you wanted to, or possibly even higher. Graphics card wise, again, same sort of deal. You could possibly, if you wanted to, use a GT 710, or you could use a RTX 3090. The choice is yours. You could use a piss pot explosive power supply. You could use a top of the range Corsair 10,000 kilowatt power supply. The flexibility is there. The reason we got into this is because of the market, and I honestly don't know. I don't think there isn't a right or a wrong answer. I don't think we'll have that magical storm where PC coding efficiency catches up, PC components get smaller and are more efficient, and all those other kind of things happen together. I don't think they will. It's very unlikely. The one company which has actually done it and made a very good job of it is Apple, believe it or not. The Apple M1 has taken pretty much all of those things and made something super efficient, super small, and basically very powerful. But again, they've done it on that condensed code, which runs only on their hardware. So is it ever likely to happen? I don't know. I've gone completely off track here. Essentially, it comes down to the fact that I don't want to build an ITX system. Micro ATX I can possibly go, but I don't think I can. I like ATX, I like the flexibility and I like the options. Prices, you often get reductions on stuff. If you put yourself into a certain niche or category with micro ATX, especially if you buy a micro ATX case, you do become suddenly very limited on options when it comes to graphics cards, motherboards, and sometimes cooling as well in terms of radiators and all that sort of stuff. So despite what motherboard you get and despite what case you get, it's always one of those things where the bigger, more flexible stuff is going to be more mainstream and is generally going to be easier to come by. I don't like that fact, but I think it's something that we all have to kind of bear in mind. Anyway, moving on. So Andrew says, explosive PSU, which brand is that, lol? It could be one of many. Let's throw our tin hats on and let's just say CIT. Some of the CIT cheapo ones are bloody awful. They possibly may not explode immediately, but there's a chance they might at some point. Ninja says, okay, do you know when DDR5 is coming out? Since you mentioned RAM, and will there be motherboards for them? Yes, DDR5 is out. It's out now. It's being validated as we speak. V-Color have already said they've got theirs and it's been validated. Corsair have as well. It's on their website. Pricing we haven't got yet. That will be most likely CES time, I would imagine. Maybe closer to Christmas, depending what happens with Alder Lake S. I think the initial Alder Lake S boards will be, I think initially they're going to be DDR4L or DDR5. I don't know for sure. I've not paid that close attention to it. But yeah, DDR5 will be about, and that's going to have, it's almost the same time as what happened when it went from AMD FX to Ryzen. There was that kind of period round about nowish, kind of third quarter of the year, where you knew that there was something new on the horizon. There were some really good deals coming out, especially with RAM. DDR3 was being sold then as the kind of the major commodity. DDR4 was about to come out or was coming out. And we started seeing RAM going down to like £25 per 8 gig stick, which still I don't think in DDR4 we've actually come down to. We've come very close in the used market, definitely. In the new market, I think LPX Corsair RAM, it's probably come down to about 60, I want to say, for 16 gigs. So not quite there, but it might hit it.
Blake's going to have to pause you because the fight's about to start.
Oh yeah, there's a fight on tonight in there. Gotcha. No worries.
Gocula, MSI A320M, A-Pro, A-Pro, Max and Ryzen 5 2600 is a good combination.
Gocula, I would say... Is it a good combination? Good is going to be objective. It's going to depend what you're running on it and what you're expecting to do with it. As far as specs are concerned, that will work. The Ryzen 5, excuse me, Ryzen 5 2600 on an A320 M-A Pro Max is fine. If you're doing a lot of rendering or that kind of all-core load work, the VRMs are going to get quite hot quite quick. On a 4-core, you might not struggle so much. Being that the 2600 is only a 65 watt TDP, that should give it a more fighting chance. I used a similar board with the 1700X, which is a 95 watt part, and it basically killed it. So you're getting towards, if you're just gaming on it, web browsing, light loads, be fine. If you're planning on rendering stuff or heavy cores, yeah, you might struggle, but it should be fine. Fleece-a-C. There was a time when 16 gigs was $49.99. Oh, that is pretty awesome. Hopefully it comes down to that again, because I would love to be able to buy 32 gigs of RAM for £100. I think that is a very nice price. I would be tempted to do that. Yusuf says, I'm from India. How you doing? Are there any options for which I can buy from Newegg? I honestly don't know. I personally, we have a similar situation here in the UK, whereas we have access to neweggs.co.uk's website, but anything you want to buy generally has a ridiculously high postage rate. So I don't think, maybe guys and girls in the stream could help me out with this one. Possibly, do you buy from Newegg in the UK? I never have, because I've always looked at the pricing. The products are a good price, but the actual shipping prices are horrendous. So no, no. Gokula, gaming and streaming. Gaming and streaming, you might be okay. Streaming probably isn't going to be too much of an overhead. It depends on the graphics card. If you're streaming and gaming, if you're using something like an NVIDIA card and using NVENC to encode, that's going to take some of the load off the processor, but then it's going to take some of the thing away from the graphics. So yeah, it should be okay. I'm looking, I'm not seeing.
Sir, it's in capitals.
Oh yeah, dear sir. Ashkay says, dear sir, B450M DS3H and 3300X and MSI 1660 Super not going to BIOS, direct boot to Windows. I don't know what it'd go. I don't know what it'd go directly into boot to Windows, unless something like Secure Boot was on, maybe. If it goes into Windows, try doing the shutdown method where you press and hold the Shift key, click Start, then choose Shutdown, and then restart rather. Keep the Shift button held down until you get the troubleshooting menu come up, and then choose Reset to EFI BIOS. That might help you out with that one. Welly Bob says, last November, 32 gigs of Corsair 3600 DDR4 was £113 on Amazon. I know, I got 2 lots. Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, that's a good price. That is a good price. Gokula says, I have RTX 2070. Oh yeah, you should be fine. Oh, it depends what your resolution you're streaming at, etc. But yeah. If you've got an RTX 2070 and you've got the 2600, you might want to pick up a slightly better board, to be honest with you. Maybe see if you can get a B450. But A320 will do the job. It'll get it done. Just don't expect too much and make sure it's kept nice and cool. Lols for Days says, how much should an Asus ROG Strix B450 ITX cost roughly? How much should it cost, or how much does it cost? Realistically, I would say ROG Strix B450 ITX shouldn't really be more than £100 new. It probably will be, but I would say realistically, value-wise, I would say that is probably what you want to be looking at. Maybe 120, 130 tops. They may well be cheaper than that. Again, ITX boards I don't really pay a great deal of attention to. I've got an ITX board and a PC in there which hasn't even got a processor. Just sat there doing nothing. Hopefully that answers your question. Fred Brown says, Mike, I just bought a Creative Sound Blaster XAE-5 Plus Saber 32. That's a long name. From Amazon, thanks to you. For my MSI X470 system. Oh, lovely job. Thanks to me. Why, what did I do? Oh, was that the special deal we posted? Awesome. Bombay Potato says, at Jason Long, my friends have had lots of issues, but I see lots of others having good experiences. Yes. For every negative experience, you probably find a positive somewhere if you keep looking enough.
Raptor.
Okay. Kenny D says, I'm hoping for RAM to go cheaper so I can upgrade my slow DDR4 2666. It will be, definitely, because obviously DDR5 coming out, there's going to be a lot of companies which... It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. If we get like we do in the British media, where everyone panics over nothing and then it causes a stampede, then we might get it. So if you start seeing in the media that DDR4 is running out and to buy it quickly, don't ignore it, because it just means they're trying to create a stampede to clear the stocks for when the DDR5 comes out. Raptor says 10900K or 5800X for gaming. Well, for gaming, the 10900K is going to be the better choice, but it depends on many other factors. It really does. If you're doing other things, if you can afford the motherboard is going to be the more expensive thing as well if you go the Intel route. Also as well, if you're buying that kind of level of processor, is it worth doing it at this particular time now? Is it worth waiting another month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, seeing what comes out from AMD? We are so close at the moment. It is always that time. There's always something on the horizon in the PC marketplace. There's always something. And when we're jumping from an entirely new platform, it's, yeah, do you want to get invested now or do you want to wait? Obviously, if you buy something now, you are buying into a kind of more mature ecosystem and arguably a more test and tried motherboards, BIOSes, etc., etc. If you're an early adopter of DDR5 and the Ryzen whatever series they're going to be next, also the older Lake stuff, then potentially you could be headed for a world of hurt. But it depends. If it's mission critical stuff, I would always go with tried and tested. If it's just a machine at home to play games, etc., then yeah, go for it. Welly Bob says Crucial Ballistic RAM 32 gig, DDR4 3200, currently 108 on Amazon. Not bad, not bad. Negative Narwhals says just built my friend a PC with an MSI MPG Pro Series Mobo and had no problems. But in my PC I've got a Gigabyte Aorus Pro and it sucks, not gonna lie. Nenad says I switched from B450 Gigabyte Gaming X to B550 Tomahawk. On Gigabyte didn't manage to boot 1900 F-Clock and Memclock 1-to-1 on MSI did it easily. Small gains but overall better performance and quality. Yeah, I think actually because of what you've done there, the B450 Gigabyte Gaming X is, although it's got the Gaming X brand into it, it is essentially a kind of entry level board, whereas the B550 Tomahawk is the next tier up anyway, and also being the fact that it's a B550, so it's going to have better VRMs, etc., better memory traces, thicker PCB, all that kind of stuff, that is going to come into it. Fleeksy, are DRAMless SSD okay as a boot drive? I would say probably not. It's fine for a boot drive, it will boot, but as soon as you start loading up any kind of buffer, then you are going to crawl to a halt. Some drives work better than others with DRAMless. So there are some which use QLC, so they actually have a section of the drive put to one side for buffering, in which case you possibly be okay. Look out for the controller. Make sure the controller does something like that, or HBM, host buffer memory. If it uses host buffer memory, that is going to reduce it, but then make sure you've got enough system memory over and above what you need to run your system, otherwise it's going to be pretty pointless. Ideally, if you can, get one with a cache. Tristan G says, hi all, Mike and Kath. How you doing, Tristan? Rick H says, my MSI A320 is paired with an Athlon 220GE and 16 GB of 2666 RAM. That right there is the perfect combination. That is what that entire platform was designed for. So A320, entry-level board, budget-minded, just gets the job done. Athlon 220GE, again, lower core count, onboard graphics, designed for a specific purpose, and that is to get a job done at the least possible price. And 2666 RAM is pretty much the maximum that can use as standard with that board. So yeah, I think that is an extremely balanced system. Guido65 says, Alder Lake has shown some impressive leaks on performance apparently. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what it's like. If it's if the performance is on par and the power usage is within a reasonable tolerance and they don't overheat like crazy, it could be a viable option. Although, is it a little bit too little too late? Especially then, because even if it comes out and it gets really, really good results, we're waiting for AMD to come out with their next gen stuff, which may wipe the floor with it. It's yeah. If you need to buy a system, you just have to buy it. But if you don't need a system, you're just kind of on the fence, I think it's a good time to wait. Blake says a lot of tubers have said there's usually a crossover period with RAM where the new doesn't outperform the old for about a generation. Yeah, that was exactly the case with DDR3 1866 and DDR4 2133. Because of the latency increase on DDR4 and you got the frequency uptick, so things like maybe Blender or something which is memory intensive would do better on the new platform. Anything which relied on faster RAM action would be better on DDR3. And it wasn't until the frequencies jumped up, the XMPs up to, I think it was probably about 2800 or above, maybe 3200. That is when we really got a noticeable difference between the two. But at 2666, which pretty much was the first gen Ryzen stuff, even then there wasn't a huge difference, at least in some things, games especially. Oh, there we go. Organ Atma, sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. I'll never buy MSI, it's impossible to troubleshoot. I had a GPU broken down on me, but debug lights showed CPU. I tried another working CPU and it still shows me the CPU is broken. That is an interesting one. I've got to be honest with you, MSI debug lights I've always found to be very good and very handy and worked very well. So I'm surprised to hear that it's done that. I had a GPU broken down, but the debug light shows CPU. So was the CPU and...
No, because if you go down a bit, there's another one saying
right, okay.
They tried another CPU.
Got you, okay. I'll catch up. I'll catch up.
I don't think you will.
I probably won't actually. I am far behind. Let's catch up a little bit. John Grammatica says, whoever uses the full feature set you get with motherboards anyway. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I very rarely do. It's mostly like kind of niche things which sometimes will catch me out, but otherwise I still don't have a case here which has USB Type-C. And I actually haven't found a scenario where I've needed USB Type-C on a case to do anything, because USB Type-A is everywhere. Even things like my my drive, backup drive, my Silicon Power backup drive, it's got USB Type-C and Type-A. And the buffer fills up before the bandwidth is done anyway, so yeah, it makes no difference whatsoever. Three-way stopcock. That's a great name, three-way stopcock. I like that. Saying you don't need more than 16 gigs of RAM. I would differ from that opinion. It depends what you're doing. If you're video editing or doing any kind of content creation, streaming, etc., you do. You definitely do. 100%.
Somebody above Motaz said, what should I go for? 16 gig RAM,
right,
32
okay.
gig RAM, and what is the difference?
I got it. I got it.
That was
So,
but I don't know
yeah.
if there's anything before that.
Should I go for 16 gig RAM or 32 gig RAM? What is the difference? The difference is, do you need it? You don't necessarily need it, but it depends on your workload. Like I just said, if you're video editing, maybe content creation, even some games now are starting to get to the point where they are soaking up a lot of what Windows can offer. So if you think Windows as an operating system, just to basically boot up, can be using anywhere between 4 and 8 gigs of RAM. If you load up a game which needs 6, 8 gigs of RAM, you're kind of getting towards the end of what is possible with your system. If there's any other background tasks which suddenly need to grab some RAM, say your OneDrive or your streaming software, Discord is swallowing loads of RAM, you've got some Chrome tabs open, you can swallow up that RAM very, very quickly. So if it's cheap, get 32 gigs of RAM. If you're on a budget and there's other things you need to buy, get 16. 16 is fine. It is absolutely fine. You can't go wrong. That's 16 gigs of RAM in that machine. Calf's machine, 16 gigs of RAM, and she's got literally
about 100 hours.
There's about 100 tabs open in Chrome and Edge, and I don't think, yeah, and Outlook as well, and all that stuff.
Email accounts.
Email accounts all running. Actually, if you do Alt Control Delete, look in what's it called, Task Manager, and see what you're running. What does it say your memory's running on there?
What more details?
Yeah. So memory usage.
68%.
68% of RAM with 100 tabs open out of 16 gigs. That's not bad.
Alright, I've got 5 apps.
Yeah, there's
108 background processes.
5 apps with 108 background processes. Yeah, there's a lot of tabs there. Literally, there are 1, 2, 3. There's at least 3 instances of Chrome running, each one with about 20 tabs on each, and then another 2 of Edge with about the same. So, yeah, it depends what you're using. Peter Davis says, do you have an iFixit kit, Mike? I don't actually. I don't want to be... Actually, sod it, I will. I think iFixit kits are great tools. I genuinely do. But the way that the kind of the upper echelon of YouTubers have kind of latched onto it as being one of those kind of, oh, look what I've got, I've spent a lot of money on a toolkit kind of thing, it kind of grates on me a little bit. I get it, it's a nice kit, and if you've got one, fantastic, I'm really pleased for you. But personally, for me, like, I've got my Mike's Unboxing screwdriver, which is for most of the things I need to do actually useless, but I've got screwdrivers here, all I need. I've got Torx bits, etc. I've got my wire cutters, which cost, like, these cost less than £1, and I've had these for 10 years plus at least. They're slightly knackered now, but they get the job done. So yeah, iFixit toolkits are great, and it's a nice little package, etc., and it looks cool and it's handy. But yeah, I've got my tools. I don't really need them. And I'm not even sure how much they are. They're not cheap, are they? They're about 40, 50 quid, aren't they, for a decent set? And I always find with all of those sets, hence why I've only got the side cutters out of the set that I bought, which the rest of it's probably been chucked away by now. It's because there isn't a single set that I know of which has got everything that I'd want in that set. So I always have to buy something else. Welly Bob says, ITX, iFixit, Amazon Chinese kits are 16 quid. Brilliant value. I might have to look at one of those. Blake says, got mine for my birthday. Great kit and supports great ideology. Yeah, actually, from that point of view, the ideology behind it of being able to fix your own stuff, yes, I commend that entirely. Being an owner of a Microsoft Surface Pro 3, which is essentially the most difficult thing to ever take apart successfully, I think it was iFixit's #1 rated worst thing to take apart ever. Yes, I totally understand the right to repair and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I get that side of things. Kim Borch says, I'm playing World of Warships with Chrome open and a few tabs, 8.2 gig in use, 7.6 standby, and just 130 megabytes free. So yes, if you need Windows, more RAM, we'll keep more things on standby. Yes, also as well, we do get a lot of people actually watching the video about stuttering in games. Stuttering in games generally is caused by resources not being allocated or too much being stored in RAM, etc. So the more RAM you can do, the better. NOAYT says, MSI is great installation, great product, most durable, best software and customer support. I don't know about all of those. I would say their customer support is okay-ish. Best software... Actually, let's discuss software. That is probably one of the things which, when it comes to motherboards, that is something which is actually pretty important. And actually today I've been using a new product, or a newish product, which has become to my attention, called Signal RGB, which is obviously RGB software, as you can probably tell, and it actually works really well. It is a way of bridging Corsair stuff and Razer and NZXT all those kinds of things, and bridging them to other ecosystems like ASUS, Gigabyte, etc., etc. I don't think it supports MSI as of yet. I've only initially started playing with it today, but actually with my ASUS motherboard and my Corsair fans, Corsair keyboard and a Corsair mouse, trying to get all of that synchronized together, you'd need iCUE, then you'd need Aurora, and possibly something else as well. And then still you'd have to go into each individual piece of software and choose one there, choose one there, choose one there, click apply, and then hope that it all remembers it and they don't interfere with each other. Whereas Signal RGB, actually the free version, it just works. It's really good, and I am going to do a video on it so you guys can see how to watch it. Ugly Bob, God bless him, sent us a set of Corsair fans, which I then bought a couple more to go with, and I've done the installation. Yeah, one more, sorry. I am going to buy some more actually, because the way it works so well, I'm going to get some new fans. But we did the video on that today, done the unboxing, and a brief look on the Signal RGB software. My PC at the moment is just absolutely rocking RGB, and it all matches, it's all synchronized, very, very good. So if you're maybe looking at RGB ecosystems and thinking, well, I like a bit of this and I like a bit of that, it is going to be one of those things which kind of takes that worry away from it. But going back to what we're saying, so motherboard software, obviously iCUE is iCUE is like something like 2 gigabytes of download or something. I swear when I was downloading it, it tried extracting the file. I'm sure it said it was 2 gig. 2 gigabytes for some motherboard control software. Are they out of their freaking minds? I know it's good, but it ain't 2 gigabytes good, surely. Anyway, Armory Crate is I don't even know where to start with Armory Crate. ASUS is so disjointed in terms of software. So you've got Armory Crate, which can do basically track your everything. So they want to know your date of birth, your email address, all that kind of stuff, as they normally do. It just bombards your email with spam. Do you want to join up to this ASUS server store stuff? Do you want to buy some storage? It's like, no, I don't. Just leave me alone. Stop harassing my ass. I haven't got time for this. So that was regrettable, signing up for that. You can control the RGB in there, but the Aurora Sync is pretty awful. Doesn't work very well. It's very clunky. Actually quite often crashes, and lighting service.exe is seen as a virus and cheat software in some games as well, which is, yeah, not a great thing. So also, if you install Armory Crate, you get Armory Crate, you get Armory Crate Lite, you get ASUS Aurora Sync, Patra RGB, Patra RGB SSD, and there's about 5 or 6 other programs it installs all together, all for the RGB ecosystem, which still doesn't work particularly well. So ASUS definitely, I would say, in terms of RGB control software, probably towards the bottom. Then you've got Gigabytes. Gigabytes actually isn't too bad, and they do have some pretty decent headers, but the RGB options are very limited. So Gigabyte software, okay, they have to be running an app, which is, well, you don't have to, you can download RGB Fusion 2.0 as a separate entity, but ideally in a perfect world they want their whole kind of Gigabyte app system installed, which is just more bloat and crap. And the whole app itself looks like it was designed kind of 2010. It just looks really old and crap. It works okay. So yeah, I'm not going to write it off entirely on how the app looks. Then you've got, who else we got? So we've done ASUS. Oh, ASRock. ASRock's RGB software, you can shove that right up your ass.
Right up your ASRock.
Stick it up your ASRock. It's horrendous. Like, what are they thinking? I can't even bear to install it on Cav's machine. I really can't. It's like, no. I'm not going to do it. I'll just leave it to Unicorn Puke, or maybe go into the BIOS and do something. ASRock definitely bottom of the list as far as RGB. So that leaves us with BioStar, which I've not seen recently, so I'll ignore them. And we're left with MSI. Theirs seems to be the best in MSI Center, which is a weird thing to say. Mystic Sync was okay, and weirdly, Mystic Sync, where it was, is where ASRock's, whatever their thing is called, is now. Theirs hasn't changed in the last 5 years, I don't think. It's exactly the same app. It's awful. So that brings us then neatly onto sync RGB. So get your motherboard, get all your equipment, plug it all in. Don't install Armory Crate. Don't install IQ. Don't install MSI Mystic Sync. Don't install RGB Fusion, Polychrome Sync, all that stuff. Just don't do it. You don't need it. If you've got another mouse like Endgame Gear or what other brands are there? Techwear, GameMax, Red Dragon, Rio Toro, AOC. Don't install any of their software. Just plug it in and you'll find that the Signal RGB software, oh, we've signaled some more RGB with a super chat from Welly Bob. Rant money, go on, let it all out, Mike. Thanks, Welly Bob.
That's enough.
That's enough. Thank you, Welly Bob. Appreciating. It gives me time to actually slurp some cola. Very good. Come on, light, turn the hell off. I need RGB sync. No, I need... Oh, I don't. Thank you, Kath. That's works. Anyway, yeah, so Signal RGB. If you haven't tried it already, I'll be honest with you, there's two versions of it. There's a free version, which is I'm using because I'm a cheapskate, and there's a paid version, which is just bloody stupid. The paid version gives you the option to synchronize with games, so if you're playing a game, the lights will be all over your PC. I think it gives you options to other profiles of lighting, which you can make up, etc. But a free version seems absolutely fine. So if you've got Corsair fans, or you've got NZXT, or you've got the Lianli 011 Dynamic with its own RGB hub, basically pretty much most stuff will work. If there's something which doesn't work, there's a little tick box or exclamation mark, and it pops open a request box, which you can send them a request and say, look, this is the product I'm using, can you please add it to the app? They might do it, they might not. I'll be honest with you, I've done that today on the Endgame Gear mouse because the XM1 RGB doesn't seem to be supported, so I've asked them to support it. So as part of my review on the software, I will be updating to see if they, A, if they reply, B, if they actually do it, and C, if it actually works. So that is definitely going to be a work in progress. And I would suggest actually try it yourself. If you're not a big fan of RGB software, or you've got loads of different ones, just head over to the Signal RGB site, have a look, see if it supports your particular kit. It is limited on what it supports, I'll be completely honest with you. Motherboard wise, I think it was Asus, Gigabyte and NZXT, possibly. I didn't see any others on there, but potentially yours may work. Other than that, it's OpenRGB, which literally I installed that today and uninstalled it straight away because I just looked at it and it's like, this is not intuitive. It doesn't tell me what I need to do. So if it doesn't tell me what to do and it doesn't help me do what I need, if I have to read a huge manual to actually use it, I'm out. I just can't be dealing with that. Signal RGB, you install it and there's all these pop-ups says click here to do this, click here to do this, click here to do this. If you see this, click this. It's like, thank you. At last, someone understands that there are people out there that like RGB but want to have things in a nice cohesive kind of setup. And me, for one, I appreciate it. And the fact that it's free, I might even sign up to buy the pro version. I might. It isn't cheap. It's like $4.99 a month, dollars, or I think it was, if you buy a couple of months, it's like $3.99, or if you buy it for a year, it's $2.99 per month. But still, 30 quid for a year's worth of RGB software, I don't know, maybe.
Hey, where'd you get it from?
That's it, yeah. Ninja BSN says, yeah, whirlwindfx.com. Basically, WhirlwindFX are people who make keyboards and peripherals, and they, as a side hustle, have designed this kind of more cohesive RGB system. It's actually really good. It is absolutely great. Simon Arden says, evening mate, late tonight, we'll have to watch back. Yeah, no worries, it is a little bit late. Yeah, Signal RGB is on the yeah, whirlwindfx.com. Matthew Day says OpenRGB. Yeah, I did. I looked at, like I said, I looked at OpenRGB, and it's like, ooh, yeah, yikes. There's too much going on there.
Jan said Aqua Computer RGB software. I've written it down so you can look
okay.
at that.
Thank you, Dutch Jan, for that one, and thanks, Willy Bob, obviously. So yeah, as far as RGB software, for me at the moment, that is the way forward. It really is. Corsair fans, even the SP120s, which are considered to be kind of a relatively modest or entry-level fan, even though they're still like 13 quid each, which isn't inexpensive. You're still looking at 45 quid or so for a set of 3. If you're decking out a whole PC and you need 6 or something, it does mount up. It's quite an expensive hobby, but the lighting profiles you can get with those Corsair fans is something which not a lot of others can actually come close, at least for the money as well, and the flexibility. Like the Lian Li fans, they're really expensive. They can do a similar level, but the software is awful for them as well. But maybe they'll work with Signal RGB at some point. Who knows? Anyway, that's the rant over on there. So yeah, definitely worth a shout. You will, if you want to try it, you'll need to uninstall your existing RGB softwares. So do bear that in mind. Otherwise it just won't work properly. Musical fan says, it's 3 AM here in India. What are you doing watching this at 3 AM?
Can't sleep.
Yeah. Shall I sing you a lullaby? Try and get you to sleep.
No, they're a musical fan.
If you're a musical fan,
Won't want you
yeah.
singing.
I would try and do some Indian music, but I've got no idea what that would be like. NOAYT says, Asus is like Intel and MSI is AMD. Yeah, I think you might be right there. Gentlemen, when I unboxed my motherboard, there was a DVD. What does that DVD do? The DVD is probably a very old throwback item from days when PCs had optical disk drives, and it probably contains a digital version of your user manual, some drivers and various other things which your motherboard could potentially use. Probably as well, being that it's a motherboard, I would say there's a 99% chance that there will be a free trial version of Norton Antivirus and or insert other antivirus software manufacturer here.
They're new to computer building, so.
Yeah, if you're new to computer building, essentially, yeah, it's a bit of an on-running joke that we have in the kind of the tech space, that you get these DVDs and disk drives, and there's probably maybe less than 1% of computers these days which actually have an optical drive. So yes, it's unlikely that you're going to need it. Most of that stuff will be able to be downloaded over the internet if you're connected to the internet. If not, you will need an optical drive or a USB optical drive to install it all. Bill Taylor says DVD is to hang on your mirror. Yes, or to hang in your car. Or hang outside to scare away birds and other animals. Poacher says DVD for mug coaster. Yeah, there is that to it as well.
Oh, musical fans are watching your live stream specially.
Oh, thank you. Musical fan, appreciate it. And let's have a look. I'm just having a look at the... if you haven't already voted, go ahead and vote now on the poll at the end. So the question was at the very beginning, MSI, the best motherboards. And currently there's been 279 votes. And of those 279 votes, currently, as things stand, I would say a slim majority have actually agreed. We've got 57% of the votes which say yes. And we've got 43% of the votes saying no. So if you were to break that down into probability, so because MSI is the question and you've said yes to MSI, the no's, arguably you could change the fanboys possibly in the no's to do 3 groups. So you'd have Asus, Gigabyte and ASRock in there. Possibly 1 or 2 other fringe ones, but so I would say that is actually a pretty strong win. That is, if we were allowed to make that a little bit difficult, saying which is your favourite motherboard.
You're just messing around with statistics now.
I am messing with statistics. But if there was the option for 4 or 5 different manufacturers there, so Asus, Gigabyte, ASRock, MSI, BioStar, possibly NZXT, something like that, Razer, I think they do some boards as well. It'd be interesting to see how it would pan out there, but yeah, I think at 57%, There's a few more votes going in now as I can see, and it doesn't seem to be changing the percentages much. So yeah, I think the stats from Amazon.co.uk, their sales, I cannot believe the top 7 boards that are sold at the moment on Amazon.co.uk are all MSI. That blew my mind. And the number 1 board is still the B450 Tomahawk, albeit it is the max version, but the Tomahawk still is just like that runaway winner, which it just keeps on getting there.
Motaz again?
Motaz, so when we buy a motherboard, of course, there ain't no internet built in, so should I buy... what should I buy to trigger the internet? If you've got internet at home, or wherever you're building it to, then you can just use the an Ethernet cable, Cat5 cable, plug that into the PC, and you can download the drivers and things whilst you're installing Windows. If not, get yourself a little Wi-Fi adapter. Relatively inexpensive, USB ones, anything for about £10 here in the UK. And you could use Wi-Fi if you haven't got Wi-Fi. If your neighbours or whatever have got it, there's a strong chance that if you scan the system, you'll probably find someone's got Wi-Fi nearby. Unless you live either in a particularly rural area and your house is on its own, and you might struggle, in which case, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what you're going to do there. You might need a DVD drive. Matthew Day says, I'll never give up my coaster makers. I honestly, actually, there has been occasion where I've missed a proper optical drive. One of which was when I bought Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, because that was on 7 DVDs. And the installation for that is horrendous. And now I've had to make an image of one of the discs. Actually, I've got that on my NAS, and if I want to play MS 2020, I've got to then mount the image from the NAS onto my PC and then start the program. So it's not ideal.
Ugly Bob's woken up.
Ugly Bob's woken up, is he? Mr. Hantech says, the only thing I can't handle with MSI is the light sync software. That's my only reason to prefer ASUS, to be fair. Yeah, I don't understand that. I think MSI's light sync software, especially from the MSI Center, the new version, I find to be much better than the ASUS one. But yeah, each to their own. If you prefer the ASUS one, that is totally cool. I disagree, but that is what this community is about. We're not all reinforcing each other's views. We've all got our own independent thoughts, which is great. James Miscellaneous, how you doing, James? James Miscellaneous says, MSI is consistent. ASUS is just ASUS is just more expensive. Yeah, I was the X570 board I had, the ASUS one. It was a little bit on the pricey side at the time. I did get it on a bit of a reduction, which made it comparatively about the same as a good B550, oh sorry, would have been X570 MSI board at the time. But I think in general, ASUS boards are becoming slightly more expensive as time is going on. Bill Taylor says, I did the B550 Tomahawk. Yeah, that is a great board. I think that will probably be, as time goes on, probably the next year, I think that will be the #1 bestseller. John Grammatica says, if MSI Godlike was £200, then everybody would have one. Yeah, I think I probably would, actually. Big Balls Bev. Nice name, I love that. I've had no problems with mine, and I'm running a Gigabyte B550 Vision. Yeah, that's a nice board, B550 Vision. I like those. Ugly Bob says 7 VDs. Yes, all 7 of them, all inserted. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but Eej. I'll say Eej. Possibly that may be right. So what about the BIOS? Which brand got the best one? I would say with BIOSes, probably familiarity is something which I would be probably unfair, because I've used MSI boards possibly more. I would say probably MSI boards have probably got the better BIOS. In fact, actually, if you want to find out for yourself, there is a playlist which will link up here to those watching later of all the MSI well, actually all the motherboard videos we've done actually on BIOS tours, and you can kind of get a feel for which you think is best. I would say, arguably, the MSI BIOS is probably my favourite. It's slightly easier to navigate. One thing I do find in it, which is very nice, is the fact that my mouse doesn't go crazy when I try and navigate it, whereas with the Asus BIOS, it's got some crazy acceleration, so my mouse is going all over the place and it's very difficult to control, where it's very juddery. I find that with Gigabyte as well. Gigabyte's BIOS, I'd say, is not great. ASRock's isn't bad. Given their dues, ASRock BIOS, I think, is possibly one of the more fully featured ones as well. Mark Point says, I own 4 MSI motherboards. One I broke myself. Mr. Hantex says, I haven't tried Light Center. Yeah, if you get the new MSI Center, uninstall all of your existing MSI software, every single element of it, then go to the Microsoft Store, search for MSI Center, and install it from there. And I've got to be honest with you, it's super, super reliable. And anything you need, you can install as separate elements, so it doesn't bombard you with all this crap straight away. Just installs the bare minimum to begin with, and it literally is the bare minimum, like just System Viewer, and I think that's about it. So then you can choose which apps you actually want. I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised with the new MSI Center in general use. He says, scratching his ear, which is normally a sign that someone's lying or trying to deceive you, but I actually genuinely have an itchy ear, and it is driving me slightly crazy. So yes, no body language there, my friends. Oh dear. John says the Pro Carbon was the best B450 MSI board, hands down. It was the best B450 board, full stop, regardless of any manufacturer. I don't think there was a better board than the Pro Carbon from MSI. I wanted one of those. I wanted the Pro Carbon Max. As soon as it was announced, I was like, yes, that's the board I want. But I never ended up getting one. I think they sold out like immediately in the UK. Boeing fan says, I've always thought Gigabyte were respectable. Yeah, they are, definitely. I would say Gigabyte boards are respectable. Respectable, certainly. But perhaps it's because they're what I first started building with years ago. Would you prefer MSI to Gigabyte, and why? Yeah, I think I would. I personally like MSI for the reasons I've stated already. The price is generally pretty good. The feature set's pretty good. The hardware on most boards is excellent and probably better than some of their competition at the same price point. The software has now become considerably better. Really, that's like 4 points is hard to argue with. Price, compatibility, software, reliability, feature set. I think you can go too far wrong. I wouldn't say that any of the other motherboards are inherently bad, but it depends what you're doing with them. If you're never going to go into the BIOS and you're basically just building a system, you're never going to look at the BIOS at all, then if it's got a crap BIOS, then does that make any difference? Probably not. So Gigabyte boards, especially things like the Aorus Elite and the Aorus Pro, the Masters, those sort of things, they're going to be an excellent choice. But yeah, I think if I'm looking for a board, I'd probably buy an MSI one. I've been looking at Intel processors because I do want to do another Intel build, and I have been looking at MSI motherboards and thinking I'm going to end up getting another MSI mortar. I know I am. I'm going to end up with a B560 mortar again. I had the B460 mortar before, but I think the B560 probably be the one to go for. Mark Point says, trying to figure out a motherboard for my i9 10900K. I don't think they do a Tomahawk, do they? In the Z590.
Tristan's off.
If they did, that would be something I would possibly look at. I'll look at that, Mark, and I'll see what I can come up with.
Tristan's
Oh, ITX. Oh, cheers, Tristan. Catch you later. Not your and what does NOA YouTube stand for? NOA. What could that be? I'm not sure. Robert Martin says hello. Christopher Butt says Soul Signal RGB on Bitwit videos today. I'll check it out now on your recommendation. it has its limitations. It is free, so bear that in mind. If your motherboard isn't supported, you may have to ask them to get support for it. If you're on an Asus or Gigabyte board, you should be okay. If you're on MSI, I think MSI is the same with a lot of things. OpenRGB doesn't fully work with MSI because of the way they've implemented their RGB. There is something which could potentially brick a board, so people are a little bit hesitant around it. So yeah, I should say that if you are on an MSI motherboard and you're looking at some other RGB software, I would be very cautious on what you install. But saying that, if you're on an MSI board, chances are you're happy with the software anyway, because it's pretty darn good, in my humble opinion. Bone Fan says, thank you, no worries. Christopher Butt says, just order some more Corsair LL fans, Amazon warehouse of course. Good job. Tristan G says he's off. Cheers matey, see you later. Curly says, I had no clue there were MSI Mobos. Really? Are you trolling, or is that a genuine thing? MSI are possibly the kings of motherboards. MSI, if you're watching, please feel free to reach out and offer me copious amounts of sponsorship money, which we probably wouldn't accept anyway. Oh dear. James Miscellaneous says MSI main boards and graphics cards also have nicer aesthetics. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Turing and before MSI's GPUs looked unique for a different model. All the Ampere and RDNA cards are boring black and greys. Yep, I'll agree with that. Rick H says Intel i9 12900K for your next Intel build. I don't, well, possibly. Monats, Mike, how can I boost the CPU from the XMB? Do you mean XMP? You don't. The GPU, the CPU boosts from, well, depending on what motherboard it is, normally there'll be something like Game Boost, or it'll be PBO, just enable PBO. Realistically these days is probably XMP, not XMP, Precision Boost overclocking on most processors really just adds extra heat. It doesn't really offer a great deal. From the discussions we've had on our Discord, it seems that a lot of people generally either don't enable it or just set it to auto rather than specifically turning it on. So maybe you don't need it. James Miscellaneous says, it's cold here. I'm wearing my mub sweater from the UK. It's starting to get a bit chilly. Yesterday was actually particularly cold here. Or cooler. Poacher 551 says, I hate Amazon warehouse, cost me a fortune. Yes, I knew that feeling very well. Although saying that, it's been a little bit quiet the last couple of days, not really got much in, but it's given us a bit of time to catch up. This week we've done some videos which have been slightly more torturous. Lots of testing. We've tested MX5 versus MX4 and some other thermal compounds for those of you that are interested. And I think you'll find the results pretty interesting actually. I was genuinely surprised. I wasn't expecting what the outcome was. George Nutton says, I recently bought an MSI Z490M Gaming Edge Wi-Fi for 26 quid from eBay. Holy crap. It had a couple of bent pins but worked perfectly when pins were bent back. That is an awesome job. Well done, George. Congrats to you. You got yourself an absolute winner there.
I like bending back pins.
Cafe is good at bending pins, to be fair.
Bending them back.
Usema, is that? Usema Farhat? I think I've pronounced that slightly correct. Mike, which is better, R5 1600 FA, AF that'll be, or the i3 10100? Which one should I get? It isn't really a question of which is better. The Ryzen 5 1600 AF is kind of like a cut down version of the 2600, which is technically slower than the 10100. So I would say it's going to be dependent on what other components you can be putting with it. If you can get a cheap enough motherboard, I would probably, I don't know, I'd be tempted to go with the Intel in that particular instance. Also, it's going to depend on what you're doing, what other things, graphics card, etc., etc. So I would say My initial gut reaction is the 10100, but if the pricing is considerably different, I would go with a 1600 and a cheaper AMD motherboard, if AMD motherboards are cheaper in your region. Migsby says, is the B450 compatible with all Intel and Ryzen CPUs? No, the B450 is for AMD, and the B460 is for Intel, and that's on the 10th generation for Intel. Jamie Cartwright says, I've just set my PBO to disable using Ryzen Master to undervolt and overclock, got fairly good results. Most people actually do find if they turn off PBO, they get actually better temps and better results, especially in things which require all-core boost, because PBO just looks for individual cores, ideally to just boost periodically up to those higher frequencies using more energy, whereas if you turn it off, there's a chance that your cores are going to boost a little bit higher and slightly cooler. As for gaming, Osima says it's for gaming, so yeah. The Ryzen 5 600 AF is still going to be pretty decent for gaming. Is a tough one. I'd need to see the prices and the motherboards really to make a definitive decision on that. If you're not too sure and you want to discuss it further, we have got our Discord chat. It's only text. You can talk if you want to, but very rarely we do that. So if you want to text and... oh, nearly broke the stream deck. If you want to text in any questions, you're more than welcome to do so. James Miscellaneous says, I wish MSI made an Armour style motherboard. Why did they make Armour Inventus, etc., but no motherboard equivalent with matching themes? They could extend to SSDs, PSUs, and provide lots of stuff now. That's actually a really good point. The Armour was, yeah, that's one of those brands which never really kind of took off, although they did kind of allude to Armour in the Tomahawk and Bazooka ranges. There was mentions of Armour in the kind of the blurbs, but yeah, they never used it as a specific thing, which is a bit of a shame, really. Mark Point says they need to unify the names for motherboards and GPUs. Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. Although it might make things a bit difficult for search engines. Looking for a bazooka and you get all kinds of things come up. Fred Brown, Mike, MSI Boss doesn't have CPU temperature. It should do. It's on the first page. Just next to the clock, I think. Crescendo. I'm using Ryzen 5 3600 with aftermarket cooler TT, that's Thermaltake UX200, but idle CPU temp remains 50 degrees centigrade. Can you please help me with another cooler? You'll probably find similar sort of deal, so it could be, those aren't particularly easy to mount, so it could be the fact that you're not quite making flat enough contact with the CPU, or it could be you're using precision boost overclocking, in which case it's thermally hitting areas where it wouldn't normally. So try turning off PBO and you might get down to 40 degrees. With a decent cooler such as, actually what am I running at the moment? Yeah, I've got about 35, 40 degrees at the moment. That's with Ryzen 5 3600 with the 360mm rad. So your results aren't that far out, but they could be a little bit better. Maybe, trying to think, the Vitro V5 might be an option. If not, it'd be the Arctic Freezer 34 Esports. I think it's probably going to be a decent jump. If not, you're looking at AIOs. Where did I get to? I'm not sure. I can't pronounce that name, so I'm just gonna click on it because I've got no idea how to even begin.
And apologies to my hi to the English version.
So
or letters we have.
Yes. I have Gigabyte B450 R5 3600 and Corsair Vengeance 3200 MHz that runs stock at 2666. I'm a bit anxious to try the XMP feature. What is your opinion on the matter? Motherboard, a PSU Corsair RM. Yeah, 3200 will be fine. Anything over 3200 on a B450 is always a little bit hit and miss, but with that 3200 megahertz, yeah, you'll hit that absolutely no problems at all. Ninad, I think I've pronounced that right, hopefully. Like Builderzoid said, every manufacturer has good and bad models. As for popularity in my country, Asus is traditionally mostly used. Then in the last few years, MSI, then Gigabyte, then ASRock. I think that's pretty much. Where most people are these days. I think MSI and Asus are arguably the more popular. At least, I would say probably in the US and in the UK, possibly in Europe as well. I'm not entirely sure. Gigabyte boards definitely very close in various areas. ASRock, I think, have just I think they've just fallen off the perch altogether. They have absolutely lost their minds. I don't know what is going on. Yeah. Was he saying, how come that board is so big? Oh yeah, that one there. That is the. Oh, let's move that. Oh, this thing's leaking already, Cav.
That's because you're sloshing.
Send it back. That was my other favourite board of all time. The B550 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi, which actually is a thick board as well, and a thick box. The box is actually bigger than most boxes. It's a big old box. That is a great. I need to use that board again. It was originally in the streaming PC, but then I bought the Gaming Edge. Is it? I always forget what that one is. Gaming Pro, Gaming whatever it is. Anyway, no, it must be the Gaming. Yeah, MSI B550 Gaming Plus, I think. But works very well, so I've left it in there. Just waiting for a nice processor to go on that board. James Messina says the new EVGA Ryzen board, while I'm sure it's great quality, looks ugly. Oof. That board's good for a machine with no tempered glass panel. Yeah, so you can't ever see it. Ashton C says I have a 5600G. How are you finding that? I'm tempted to get one of them if they come down to a sensible price. It's unlikely it will happen, but you never know. Just notice my RGB's still going. £13 well spent. Somebody actually commented when we posted the deal for this, and somebody posted a quite a blunt comment, basically saying, "Why am I posting cons like this?" And I kind of like, well, it appears to be okay. It's on Amazon. You can send it back if it's crap anyway. So for £13, for most people, £13 isn't kind of the difference between eating a meal that week or not, you know? If it was £130, then yes, I'd be slightly more thoughtful about the posts. But for £13 reduced from 53, come on. How bad can it actually be? It's actually all right. 13 quid for a portable air cooler, especially when those hot mics kick in, which at some point they probably will. But yeah, it's a personal air cooler. What more do you want for 13 quid? I think that's a great deal. James Smith says the AVJ fangirl can sing behind the curtain. Oh dear.
You've never finished answering that question, did you?
Sorry, what was that question?
It's Ashton.
Ashton C.
Yeah.
5700G, sorry, 16 gigs of RAM, stock cooler. I plan on upgrading to 32 gigs of RAM and want to overclock the CPU. Do you have a good budget cooler to recommend before overclocking?
That one there?
Yeah, stick one of these on there. That'll do it. Bit of water cooling for your PC. £13, bargain. 5600G is going to be a weird one. I don't know if you can overclock those much anyway. The 5000 series, from what I know, doesn't overclock particularly strongly. So you might get a little bit out of it. I don't know whether you'd want to spend a lot of money actually on cooling in order to overclock it further, depending on what you're using it for. If you're upgrading to 32 gigs of RAM and you're using a 5600G with the onboard graphics, I'm kind of guessing you're sticking with the onboard graphics, possibly. Is that your kind of aim, to just go with that? I'm not sure what you're using the system for. I would say for a 5600G with some limited overclocking, probably again, depends on your budget. I would say realistically, the kind of the value for money proposition would be the Freezer 34 Esports Edition, or something of that nature. So a kind of 120mm tower cooler. If you're really overclocking in it, then you might want to think about a 240mm AIO. Again, the Freezer 240 is an excellent choice, good value for money. There's quite a lot of cheaper ones on the market now for 240mm AIOs. So yeah, I would have a look around. It depends what you're doing. I would say realistically, the Freezer 34, maybe even the Vitro V5 is going to be a difference. One of the Snowman coolers, the MT4 or MT6, will see a definite increase of performance over the stock cooler, because the stock cooler on there is the Wraith Spire, I believe. Is that right? I don't think it's the Stealth, is it? It's the Spire. So yeah, it's not got a particularly good cooler, and even actually like the one posted above, the Thermaltake UX200, actually isn't a bad cooler. At least it's not supposed to be. I might have to get one of those and see what it's actually like. Fred Brown says, Mike, 9 degrees here now. Oh my goodness, that is cold. Alexander says, I bought my first PC ever after almost a decade of using crappy pre-built. Bought myself MSI B550 Tomahawk to go with Ryzen 5 5600X. I absolutely love it. Design, connectivity, 2x M.2, all for $150 or so. Alexander, you've done well there. The B550 Tomahawk is actually, that was a great, I think I sold that one to Noob on here.
No, I don't think we did.
Or did I?
I think it went to Rob.
It was somebody on the Discord, definitely had it. Dutch Jan, yeah, 6-pipe Snowman, all good things. British Noob says, Freezer 34 got an amazing OC with the 6700K. Yeah, that is a good cooler, Freezer 34. Osmar says, can I overclock anything on my MSI A320 M-A Pro? Not really. But the only thing you can overclock is your RAM, and that isn't going to be easy. If you do any overclocking on it, you can, well, you essentially you can't. No is the answer. I'm trying to think of ways that you can actually do something in a more minimal way, but even in the more minimal ways, it's just going to be a world of hurt, so don't do it. LeBlue says, hi Mike, is there a big difference between a B450 and B550? Also for a gaming rig, would you go for a Ryzen 5 3600X or a Ryzen 7 3700X? I would go with a B550 and a Ryzen 5 3600X. The VRMs in general and the actual board layout, the tracks, etc. on a B550 range are significantly better than the B450, because the B450 was designed for a certain type of chip in mind. The B550 was designed after the next generation of chips came out, and also then they've worked out what the failings were in the X570 setups and improved them. So the B550 is almost like X570 Lite, for want of a better description. So I would go with that. The Ryzen 7 3700X is going to be good for extra cores if you're streaming, that sort of thing, but you don't really need to. No problems, Ashton. Happy days. Jason Page says the Vitro AIOs are great coolers. Yeah, I've seen those and they've been heavily marketed on Amazon recently. Poacher551 says can vouch for the Vitro V5. Yeah, the Vitro V, I've got one up there and it's a great cooler. I'm still looking for something to put it in actually. Jamie Cartwright, what would you say is a normal idle temp for a Ryzen 7 3800 XT, Mike, using a Kraken Z 63 AIO. Oh god, normal idle temperature, 3800 XT with water cooling. Is a Z63 a 240? I think it is, isn't it? Probably somewhere in the 40s, I would have thought. High 30s, low 40s. Oh no, James saying about watch Mike's video on him. It wasn't the Vitro or the Ventro. It was the Dark Rock, the Dark Flash, Dark Air. That thing was an absolute horrendous thing, but they did look very similar.
Or did you have Vitro fans?
The Vitro fans were awful. The Vitro cooler was actually pretty good. Jamie Cartwright says, yeah, 240. That's an open air thermal tape P3 case too. Yeah, the 3000 range and the 5000 range aren't particularly known for good idle temperatures. If you want good idle temperatures, go for a 2000 series. They seem to work much better at those lower use case scenarios. You find with the 3000 and 5000 series, and probably the 4000 series to some extent, the PBO is a little bit aggressive. So they're always trying to boost a little bit, even if it's just on one core, which then in turn raises temperatures. So if you turn off precision boost overclocking, you'll notice a drop of probably 5 to 10 degrees almost instantly, because it won't be doing that. James Miscellaneous says, Mike, tell Arctic or someone to make some good white RGB 140mm plus or bigger fans. Making white RGB or white LEDs is really difficult and it's not easy to do. And actually white RGB is the most kind of expensive in terms of wattage that you can do, because it's a mixture of all the colours and it draws so much power. So for some reason they don't like doing white. Fred Brown says, ASRock are bad for rebates. MSI have been as well. They've been, I bought, I can't remember which board it was. I bought a board which said they had a £30 rebate, and I tried forever to claim that and eventually gave up. And I said I'd never buy another board, and I did, almost a week later. Ordinary Dude says, put a Vitro V5 on your ITX board in a Coolmaster NR200 if it fits. I have one on my 3700X and an NR200. The NR200 Plus, I think, which is the new one, I did look at, and I did look at it thinking, I could do that. I could do that. It might happen. I might get to the point where I'm so bored with all the PC stuff that I just do something slightly more outlandish. Guido65 says, my 5800X idles at low 30s with undervolting. That's pretty good. That's damn good. James says, white fans with RGB, not only white LEDs. Gotcha. And where else are we? Enclosure 1440p, do manual overclock. I've done it with my 37X. Less heat and higher clocks. 4.275 megahertz right now. That's pretty good. Dutch Jan says 5600X and the 360 AIO gets the job done. Jason Gage, I did have the Vitro fans. I got to say I did like them. I agree with your review. The controller is rubbish, but get a different hub to control them. And I agree with that actually. The Vitro fans, if you get a different hub, then yeah, they're absolutely fine. But that was my point. Like, they should have come with a proper hub to begin with. And let's have a look at the poll and see how we're going now. So on the MSI Are They the Best Motherboards poll, the end result, because I think we're going to pretty much wrap things up now, is yes, at 58%. I'll end the poll now. So yeah, 58%. So that is kind of almost getting towards 2/3 of people saying that. It's obviously not a complete thing, but still, yeah, I think that's a reasonable. I think that's a reasonable conclusion that MSI are the best motherboards. Hooray! Blake Ancliffe says the heavyweight champion of the world is from the UK. I couldn't tell you. I've got no idea. Ugly Bob says he was. Right, okay. So clearly that's not gone well tonight then. Actually, is anyone from England fighting tonight? I have no idea. I know there's a fight on, but I don't know who it is. I've had so much RGB time today that I haven't seen anything else in the news. Actually, wonder if I can show that. Can I show that on there? No, I can't. No, I can't. Dutch Jan says, at this moment. Oh, right, so they're fighting at this moment. Okay. Oh, AJ was fighting. Gosh. Was fighting or is fighting? Motaz has come in with a question here. Mike, can you suggest me a case with a PSU and be cheap? Not really. There aren't that many manufacturers these days which will sell a case with a power supply. You get some aftermarket companies which will do it. I have seen in the past a couple of offers with Corsair where they've included Corsair PSUs in a Corsair case. But yeah, it's not really something which is either recommended or kind of liked in the PC community. Generally, people like to get their own stuff. Normally, if a power supply is bundled with a case, it's kind of quite a low-end one. You'll probably find if you search on Amazon, if you can get Amazon wherever you are, I'm not sure where you are, Amazon, or actually anywhere, just look for CIT. CIT do a range of cases and they do actually do power supplies, and sometimes they do some OEM kind of deal bundles where they will put a power supply in. They're not particularly good power supplies if they're included. That is the biggest problem with them. They're not going to be great. So yeah. Yeah, actually Bob says, yeah, Scan sometimes do a bundle deals on cases and PSUs, so yeah, if you can get hold of scan.co.uk, that's always worth a look. Osama says, if I put a 3200 RAM plus 2666 RAM, which speed will work? It will normally default down to the lowest of whatever's in there. So if you've got 2666 RAM and you put in 3200, it's most likely to run at 2666. You might find you could overclock the 2666 slightly to maybe 3000 or 2933 and kind of meet somewhere in the middle, but luck of the draw. Ordinary Dude says, Inwin says a lot of cases with PSUs, they are mostly OEM quality stuff. Yes. I'm in Egypt. All right, okay, and it's 12 AM here. Well, it's not too far. We're an hour in front.
Behind.
Or behind. Or actually, is that 12 AM? Is that? Yeah.
Morning.
Yeah, it's morning. Yeah.
It's an hour ahead.
That's fine. Jason Gage says at the moment Amazon have an EVGA 550 watt PSU for less than 40 quid. And then a cheap case, you'll be all good. Yeah, that works. Right, so I think that's going to wrap this one up. I think we've gone on way longer than I should have actually. Managed to stretch the shit out of this one. Well done, Michael. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I'm actually glad we've had this chance to do a little bit of discussion, a few Q&A as well. It's always nice to get some feedback from you guys, hear what's going on, see what your thoughts are. Obviously, what your opinions are do kind of influence us to some extent of what we review, things we're looking at. So yeah, seems that a lot of you are interested in other motherboards as well and certain other fans, coolers, etc. So yeah, all food for thought. So yes, have to go on a shopping spree next week, although who knows, with so many new things around the corner, it's actually really difficult to work out what to do. There are some really good videos coming out this week. We've had some blinders this week which have done really well, over and above what we normally do. So For those who are watching and sharing, we do thank you immensely. Thank you very much. Next week, got some really good videos coming up, and there's a few which are coming out with humorous bits towards the end. So yeah, stay tuned towards the end, because this week I just done too much and I got tired and silly, and it's reflected in the videos. So yeah, if you stay to the end, you can see I'm just gradually wilting into the end, and then
That might be the week after.
I get to the home straight, and it's like, right, I can just mess around now, and I do. So yes, thank you all very much for watching. Hopefully you've had an enjoyable evening. If you haven't already, don't forget to smash the like button, and do us a favour, share the videos with your friends and other social media posts. It all goes to help out and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, good luck finding your fuel. Well, luckily I only literally work 6 minutes walk away, so I'm still using the same fuel that we bought before the first lockdown in March 2019. So 2020.
Had the same fuel for 2 MOTs.
Yeah, 2 MOTs, same fuel. Anyway, I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and now too, and hopefully we'll catch you, yes you, in the very next video. Thanks for watching.